Hey Bobcats, this is Mr. Peterson. Today we're going to be solving quadratic inequalities. Our learning goal is to be able to solve quadratic inequalities using tables and graphs and using algebra, of course. We'll focus mainly on this video on the tables and graphs part and hit the algebra part a little bit later. Anyway, a lot of the ideas that we know about inequalities carry over into quadratics. The graph of the parabola is the boundary. If it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we're going to use a solid line. And if it's less than or greater than, we're going to use a dashed line. And if it's greater than or equal to, we're going to shade above the parabola. And if it's less than or equal to, we're going to shade below the parabola. All right, so the first one up is graph this quadratic inequality. And we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. I know we all have calculators that we can use to make this a lot quicker, but part of this is also being able to do the work that's behind all of it, that your calculator is doing. So what we want to do here is, and I'll just kind of give you a preview of what we're looking for, is we're going to try to rewrite this first in vertex form, and that's going to give us our vertex of our parabola. Then we're going to rewrite it so that we can solve as zeros, and that'll give us the points that we can use to plot our parabola, and then we can go from there with the shading ideas. All right, so first of all, we're going to treat this just like it's an equation. We're going to say that y is equal to negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 6, and on that hand, we'll also say that 0 is equal to negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 6. All right, now the first thing you might see when you look at this is that they all would have a common factor of a negative 2. So let's pull the negative 2 out. And if we're going to rewrite it in vertex form, we need to have a coefficient of 0 anyway, or of 1, excuse me, for our x squared. So let's pull the negative 2 out. This would be a negative 2 times the x squared, and then we would write plus a 2x, and then we would have to do minus a 3. And I'm going to go ahead and write it back here, save ourselves a little bit of room for completing the square. All right, so what we're going to do here is we have to take half of the b, which in this case would be 2. So half of 2 is 1, and we want to square it, which would be 1. So we want to add 1. And since we want to write this in vertex form, we want to also take away 1 from the same side. And I'm going to add a little extra parentheses there and help us out. So now we know that this is negative 2 times the quantity of x plus 1 squared. And then we would have over here a negative 3 and a negative 1. Put them together, you get a negative 4. But we need to remember that that whole thing needs to be multiplied by a negative 2. So a negative 2 times a negative 4 would yield a positive 8. So now we have vertex form. We have vertex form of our parabola, which would be negative 1 comma 8. So we can go ahead and go up on our graph and plot negative 1 and then 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There is our vertex. Now we want to find the zeros, and one way to do that is completing the square. We could also use factoring. We could also use the quadratic formula. I thought, why don't we use the quadratic formula? We just learned it the other day, or we just learned how to prove it the other day, and it's already in ax squared plus bx plus c form. So let's just do that. So our first term would be the opposite of negative 4, which is just 4. Plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared would be positive 16 minus 4 times a, which is negative 2, times c, which is 6, all of that divided by 2 times a, which is negative 2. All right, so let's clean this up just a little bit more. We have 4 plus or minus the square root of. So in this, we would have to do the multiplication first. So 4 times a negative 2, that would be negative 8, times 6 would be negative 48. So inside here, we have a 16 take away negative 48, which is really 16 plus 48, which is 64. Sorry, I'm skipping a couple steps. I just want to save us a lot of writing up here. And then we have 2 times a negative 2, that would be a negative 4. Alright, so when we evaluate this, the square root of 64 will get 8. So we have 4 plus or minus 8 over negative 4. Alright, so now we can get to the point where we can get our two zeros. 4 plus 8 is 12. 12 divided by negative 4 would be a negative 3. That's one of our zeros. X equals negative 3. All right, now let's do the other one. 4 minus 8. That would be negative 4 divided by negative 4 is positive 1. There are our two zeros. We would have negative 3. Oh, different color. Negative 3, positive 1. All right, now let's worry about the graphing issue here. It is less than, so we're going to want to use a dotted line. So we'll use a dotted line here. Dotted line. And then it's less than, so we want to shade below the parabola, which would be this area right here. Okay, so why don't you try this one? Just write it in vertex form. Try this one, find the zeros of it, same one. And now tell me which graph matches it. And if you're having trouble seeing these, also on the flip chart, don't look there. Look on the display on your screen for Educanon. All right, we'll stop there. We'll see you in class today. Have a good evening.